Hey guys, it is MissSimReno. If you are returning to the channel, welcome back. And if you are brand new, I am very excited that you decided to join me here today for another speed build. And I love this build. I'm just gonna go out and say it right now. So I am usually very critical of my builds. I actually don't like a lot of them, to be honest with you. I don't really know how to quantify that, but there are a lot of them that I'm just kind of like, well, I guess it worked. I'm glad other people enjoy them. But this one I was really excited about. I did use a picture on Pinterest to kind of think of a layout and structure, but I was really excited because this is a base game and seasons only build. The last time I did kind of a pack restricted build, I think it was titled Small Home Big Family or Big Family Small Home, something like that. And it was base game and parenthood. So I love seasons. It's probably one of my favorite expansion packs, not only for the actual seasons and gameplay that we get, but I love the build and buy objects so much. I love Craftsman style things. Like Craftsman style homes are probably one of my favorite. I could probably say that about a lot of different styles of homes, but I really like Craftsman's, and all of the objects like the build and buy that we got with seasons, they're just so pretty, and they're just so rustic but also very vibrant. Like this white against this siding, the white windows and doors and everything are just so pretty in my opinion. I really like it. And you're probably thinking, if you saw me put those columns on the side of the build, so I was talking about this over on Twitter when I was making this build, and it wasn't like it was out here on the channel yet, but like when I was actually making it and I was kind of playing around with it and all that stuff, those columns over there, this is what triggered the whole thing. So I uploaded this just to my own library because I wanted to make sure that even though I put the filters on every time I went to a different category, which, mind you, kind of a flaw. I'm just gonna point it out. Like every time you switch a category in build and buy mode, you usually have to reapply any filters. So I was filtering down to base game and seasons. And when I saved it to the library, I was like, oh my God, it says that there's something from Get Together in here. That's not gonna work. So I went through and I realized that, yeah, the columns are from Get Together. I didn't even think about it when I placed them. So I do end up removing them prior to taking the screenshots and before I uploaded this to the gallery for you guys. But I changed them out with base game columns and it was still triggering as Get Together. Like there was something in there from that pack. I spent probably 2-ish hours, I want to say, if not more, going through and looking at every individual item that I placed down on this lot. I tried these plants from the debug menu here. I removed all of them and ended up just getting plants for the landscaping from, the main catalog that we have where the filters would apply. Because at first I was like, oh, maybe it's just the columns. Then I saw these shrubs here, and even though I filtered down to base game and seasons in the debug menu, sometimes I've noticed it's a little wonky where it will still pull some random debug items that seem to be from other packs. Like these shrubs really resemble some of the shrubs that we got with Get Together and that are in the world of Windenburg. So I really wasn't sure, but I took a lot of time placing these bad boys down, and then I just tore them all up. In fact, I don't think I edited that part out. It doesn't take too long, thankfully, but basically like all of the bushes and shrubs that I put around this build, even though I filtered down to base game and seasons in the debug menu, I couldn't figure it out. I just didn't understand what was going on. So at the end of the day, I do swap them out with something else. You'll probably see it later in the build where I go to the front and the backyard and there's no landscaping suddenly, and you're like, didn't you do that already? And yes, I did. But I actually talked about it over on Twitter. This is basically the main point. So I'm actually whipping out my phone right now because I want to look at Twitter, because someone had posted and responded, because I posted screenshots and I was like, I don't understand what's going on. And someone said that other people have had issues with this, where it was basically a get to work or get together related thing where maybe a base game item used get to work or get together swatches, or it was a get to work or get together item that had base game swatches. And anyway, it was basically throwing off that trigger in the gallery where it tells you what pack items came from, because when I looked at that, it said that there were no items listed that were used in this build from Get Together or anything. So long story short, actually that was like a really long story, there is nothing from Get Together or any other pack in this build. It is just base game and seasons. And I've talked through the entire exterior structure. At least that's like, what, 5 minutes down for a voiceover? But I did really, really like this build. The layout took me a really long time. I actually did it off camera at first because I struggled with the upstairs. The downstairs kind of came together quickly, but once I got upstairs, I realized I didn't have as much room as I thought, especially with the stairs. I mean, could you imagine if we had spiral staircases that took up like 4 square tiles instead of like long rows of tiles? And even when you do the stair manipulation tool, which I absolutely love and I actually used a few times as I was trying to figure this out, it still took up so much space and it made it so odd. It really did. Also, sorry I stuttered right there. But I ended up finding something that worked. So this is a 3-bedroom and 2.5 bath home, I believe. So downstairs there's 2 full bathrooms, which is kind of weird because the bedrooms are upstairs, because there's only 1 half bathroom upstairs. But I really liked how all of these items came together. I was really surprised that the base game items and season items seemed to work really nicely together, but I was also surprised that so many of the items that came with seasons just worked. Like, there were so many items that came with that pack and they were all so beautiful and worked together so nicely, which I'm sure you could say about any expansion pack, right? Like, of course the items are supposed to look good together, but I thought it worked out really well with base game. Like, I was just pleasantly surprised as to how many items I could use and how cluttered and lived in the home still looked without being able to use a lot of the clutter items that I usually use from maybe packs such as Parenthood or Get Together or Get to Work and stuff like that. There is a lot of repeat of artwork, I will admit to that one, especially those like pair wall art things there. There's like the apples ones and the leaf ones that are all base game. I use those a lot because they just do a really nice job of filling small spaces. But this little entryway is probably one of my favorite parts of the home. I love that mirror. I've mentioned it before, the one from Seasons. And you probably saw me take down the wall so I could lower it a little bit, but I used it in that green swatch because what I ended up kind of doing, and maybe this is just because a lot of the base game items are this kind of color palette or color scheme, is I used a lot of dark wood as well as kind of like green and grayish olivey kind of accents, I suppose. So there were some items from Seasons that obviously worked really well with that, but it was mainly base game, I think, that influenced that color scheme throughout the whole build. And here we're in the living room, which I absolutely adored. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I ended up liking it because I couldn't clutter it up as much as I usually do, but I think it came together really nicely. And these end tables I have never used. I've never used those. They always were, well, one, they're too big. I made them smaller for the sake of this build because they're freaking huge and I don't understand why everything has to be giant in this game. But I made them just a little bit smaller and I use these couches, which I usually really do enjoy using, but a lot of the swatches are actually pretty vibrant. And this was the only swatch that kind of matched at least some kind of wallpaper or paint that I could use, as well as the wood matching the kind of like dark scheme that I wanted throughout this entire build. So that was actually really nice. And I used Baby Yoda. I haven't used Baby Yoda in a build because, well, I honestly forget that we have it in game. I do very much enjoy Star Wars. I would consider myself a Star Wars fan. However, I do not have Disney Plus, so I have not seen The Mandalorian. But I have heard, of course, about Baby Yoda and seen all the memes on the internet machine. So I know exactly what Baby Yoda is, and I love him so much. And it was kind of fun to toss him in here, especially since I didn't have a lot of clutter items to use. But here is kind of I won't really call it a breezeway because it is open to the living room, but I did like using those columns inside. And then I put a bookshelf here and just a plant over in the other corner, as well as one piece of wall art, I believe. I was going to put a place to sit, but I didn't think that it was going to be a place where a lot of people would sit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see that as a seating area. Also, I'm sorry if you hear some banging upstairs. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, but my neighbors upstairs have a dog, and there may be like 2 or 3 times a day that this dog is ripping through that apartment like a psychopath. He's doing the zoomies. That's what I think, and bless him. Like, I'm glad he's getting that energy out and he's excited to see his peoples, but it's like real loud and sometimes it scares me. So I'm sorry if you can hear it in the voiceover because it seems like the dog is starting to run around a little bit. But now we're moving into the kitchen slash dining, and originally I was actually thinking that this section of the home was going to be the living room, but then I realized that was kind of silly because I was sitting there trying to configure where all of the furniture would go because it's such an odd shape. And then I looked at the other side of the home and I was like, this makes so much more sense. This is much more spacious. Why am I doing this to myself? So I ended up kind of swapping them in my head, and I put the little dining table here. And now I did have to shuffle it just a little tiny bit before I uploaded this to the gallery because those chairs in the back were inaccessible. My sim was having a little challenge getting there, but I just moved them literally not even a noticeable amount and it was fine. And that seems to happen a lot. Actually, I noticed something else too. Did you guys notice that your Sims actually don't have as much trouble navigating smaller spaces after the release of Tiny Living? I feel like that was a thing. I feel like they did something and it made me really happy because errors like this when I'm playtesting with having move objects on are actually few and far between at this point, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. It's either they did something, which I wholeheartedly believe that they did with Tiny Living being released, or maybe I'm just getting better at knowing what will work and what won't. Maybe it's a combination of both. I don't freaking know. But I was happy about it. And the kitchen is very simple. They do have a couple of decorations on the tiles behind all of the appliances. And actually at the end of the screenshots, you'll see a coffee maker on top of the dishwasher. And that's the only thing that I add actually after the fact. So it is kind of sort of cluttered, not really, but it's a very nice casual, kind of like traditional kitchen. There's nothing really special about it. And then I put the little pegboard or corkboard here with some postcards, almost forgot the word, as well as some more wall art. And behind that door is actually one of the full bathrooms that is downstairs here. And all of the bathrooms are pretty much identical, same flooring, same tile wallpaper, and pretty much the same sink aside from the other full bathroom, which I think I used some countertops because it was just a little bit bigger and kind of worked. But there's a shower in this one here, and then there's countertops with a sink in them, as well as a toilet, obviously, because, well, full bath for the 4 millionth time. But I really, really liked these bathrooms. I don't use that tile a lot, which, I don't know, it just never seemed to fit with some of the floorings that I used. But on a whim, I used that one that kind of looks like a stone flooring, and I thought it worked. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, like, match, but I thought it worked. And I also don't use this kind of like decorative towel either, that green one that came with base game. So doing a restricted pack build is actually really fun and challenging, but I learn a lot more about the base game items that we have. And one, it makes me feel 2 things. It makes me feel really grateful that I am able to get all of the other packs and have all of those items to use, but it also makes me realize that even with base game and maybe 1 expansion pack, I can still make like a home that looks fairly decent and lived in. And even though I use repetitive items, I feel as though it doesn't look repetitive, which is kind of important to me. So it's always really fun for me. I really like it, and I hope you guys enjoy this home too. And if you have any other ideas for restricted pack builds, and not even just expansion packs, like if there are certain game or stuff packs or something that you would want to see along with base game, I can definitely give it a shot. I'm not gonna promise anything spectacular, but I can definitely try. Even though I did kind of pleasantly surprise myself with this build, so I suppose you never know. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting more comfortable. But this is the parents' bedroom. And as you can see, I kind of messed up the room there because I was trying to put a different mirror on the wall, but I ended up using this wall mirror that I typically use if I'm putting a wall mirror on a wall. Wow, that was a sentence that I said with my face. Okay. And I put a dresser here and I just kind of cluttered up with a few miscellaneous items. And that color of the bed, I don't think I've used that swatch before because it's kind of like a darker swatch. I don't know. I don't think I've used it before, so it was kind of fun. And I also used a few lamps from Base Game that I haven't used in a long time. And surprisingly, even though I repeated a lot of artwork, it wasn't hard to find pieces that fit in different areas. So that was really nice. And the parents have a fireplace in their bedroom. I wasn't able to put one downstairs where the kind of quote unquote chimney stack is because that was actually in, I think I blocked it off, but it's technically in the kitchen area and I just really didn't think it worked. But now we're working on one of the 2 bedrooms, so even though I didn't have really an exact family in mind, I was kind of thinking that they just had a son and a daughter. I wasn't thinking of ages necessarily, maybe children, because some of the items are a little childish, but this is the son's room and he just has some like movie posters and stuff like that and some random items on top of his dresser, including a stereo, which I don't include a lot of stereos, I feel, in my builds, even though I make my Sims listen to music a lot. Actually, what I do, and maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but I do it anyway because it makes it enjoyable for me sometimes, is if I actually purchase an album or I have downloaded music, legally downloaded music, mind you, I will actually take those MP3 files and you're able to put custom music in The Sims if you just put it in the appropriate folder. And I toss some of my favorite music in there and I basically get rid of some of the Simlish music. Granted, I don't like English words and letters in The Sims. I do enjoy my Sims listening to the music that I like because I get to listen to it. And I also turn off the setting that speeds up the music when you actually speed up the game itself. So the music will just continue to play at its normal pace while I can actually go to like, you know, 3rd speed and go through them eating and like showering and stuff like that. So that's a little glimpse into how I play. I actually put some of my most recent favorite tunes in there, and I'm really scared to say it out loud in a video because I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah. Anyway, that's how I play. Moving on, this is the daughter's room. And the daughter's room actually does have a little bit more space, but it's kind of awkward space. And my Sim did have trouble walking around this bookshelf that I put here, as well as the chair. So, there might be some trouble, but you know what? She can still get in the bathroom through the other door. But if you really don't like it, I would just say get rid of the bookshelf because it doesn't really add much. I was just thinking that she enjoys books maybe more than her brother, who enjoys maybe music and video games or something like that. I don't know, I didn't really go that far into their personalities and their interests, so that's totally up to you guys if you end up using this home and kind of putting a family in here that fits that. And here is their little half bath, so they do each have a door, and at least they have access to a toilet just in case of emergencies. But the showers are downstairs in the full bathrooms, and I don't decorate the porches very much. I put one seating area here as well as a flower arranging station, but there's no grill now that I think about it. They aren't really a grillin' fam, I suppose. And now you can see that there's no landscaping. So I do all of the landscaping here. And like I said, I just use some base game plants to kind of fluff things up a little bit. And I actually still really like how it looks. And oh, I didn't even mention, I built this in Granite Falls. I wasn't thinking it was a rental home, but I was thinking that the surroundings really fit for this style of build. So note that it is currently on a Granite Falls lot, so all of the surrounding kind of like landscaping and vegetation, I think really fits, but maybe this build would also fit into Brindleton Bay or Newcrest, maybe Willow Creek. I don't know, I feel like it doesn't fit into Willow Creek that much just because it's a little rustic, but I suppose if you have kind of a neighborhood of builds that are somewhat similar and kind of have that same look, it could work. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You could also make it a vacation home if you really wanted to, but I think there'd need to be a lot of alteration at that point, so I don't know. But when I did the screenshots with my test sim, I completely forgot that this was a rental lot and I couldn't move that test sim in, so I had to make them go on vacation for like 7 days and wait for the weather to cooperate and then take screenshots. So this was a labor of love, and I don't know, I'm really proud of it. I really like this build. I felt like I struggled with the base game and Parenthood restricted build, but the base game and seasons one I feel like I really didn't. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're coming up on the end of the video, and I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts, and I will catch you next time I post a video, which will hopefully be very soon. I think the next one will be a not so berry challenge or another build. I'll leave you with the suspense. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Oh, here you are, face to face in this trashy bar. Another glass and I am going places. Makes me laugh about the irony of everything. I like the way you're thinking. I don't really care about the music on the dance floor. I don't really mind. All the smoke is in the bathroom. I don't care at all, baby. You got my attention. So you were saying, oh no, I don't see the logic of things. It's quite a lonely world that we're living in. Oh baby, you are something special, I'm sure. Everything makes total sense when you're next to me. Where you wanna go? I am all about adventure times. Another drink and I'll go anywhere. The way you smile, like a flash in the universe. You are illuminating. I don't really care about the people in the bar line. I don't really mind all the woo girls doing stage dives. I don't care at all, baby. You got my attention. So you were saying